So in addition to Georgia, Andrew Gillum's campaign conceded on the night of the election. To tell you the truth, I don't know who was telling him to do that. Maybe the same people who were giving him advice to campaign with Hillary Clinton and do fundraisers with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Just keeping it real. As I went live, these are the results in Florida now, which will trigger, if the margins hold, and this result holds, will trigger an automatic recount in Florida. So DeSantis, 49.6, Gillum, 49.2. And obviously, I mean, you can't really get closer than that. So this would be an automatic recount, but not all the votes are counted, so it very well could deadlock, or more could come in for DeSantis, putting him over the 0.5%. Again, 0.5, a difference of 0.5 triggers an automatic recount. You know, I thought today, do I really want to give my analysis on Andrew Gillum and his campaign and the election results? Because there's still a chance he could win. Because frankly, what I have to say is not so kind to Andrew Gillum, to be honest with you. I want him to win over Ron DeSantis, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't live in Florida. But as I said, even though I reported on who he was taking money from and the mistakes I thought he was making, I still think he's better than Ron DeSantis. I think Ron DeSantis is a Trump mini-me. I think he's dangerous. I think he's racist. And I think Andrew Gillum would make a better governor than him. I think every single person in Florida, especially progressives, is going to have to hold him to the hot seat right away because he sprinted to the center. But I thought, do I really want to do this today? And the answer is, yeah, I have to, because I have to do my job, and that is to report the truth. So I want to show you a poll. I want to show you the polls in Florida before this election happened. This is the Real Clear Politics average of polls in Florida. The one I highlighted was the poll was taken between October 16th and October 20th. It was taken by CNN, so pretty reputable poll. It had Andrew Gillum up by 12 points. Okay? So this was taken October 16th to October 20th. Andrew Gillum was up 12 points. On October 21st, so a day after that poll was finished gathering, Andrew Gillum had a debate on CNN with Ron DeSantis. And let me show you, as a reminder, a clip from that.
Here's what people need to know. Andrew's for this concept Medicare for all, which is a euphemism. Because if you read it, it actually abolishes Medicare for seniors. It abolishes Medicare Advantage. It abolishes TRICARE. And as a veteran, I know that military families depend on it. If you get your insurance through your employer, it abolishes that. And it dumps all those people against their will, regardless of if they want to stay in their current plans, it dumps them on a single-payer government system. Taxes will go through the roof. We'll obviously face fiscal difficulties. It will hemorrhage money, and then the government will choose who gets the care and who doesn't. Floridians should have their care protected. Seniors should be able to stay with Medicare Advantage. They should be able to stay with Medicare. If you get it through your employer, you should be able to keep it.
Well, again, and I expect we'll hear a lot of this revisionist commentary in history this evening from Mr. DeSantis. But in fact, what we're proposing to do is to take $6 billion of money that ought to be coming to the state of Florida and to bring that money here to the state. Listen, there are Democrats and Republicans, folks on both sides of the aisle, who believe that this is the right thing to do. Mr. DeSantis, while in Congress, voted to discriminate and allow insurance companies to discriminate against people based off of pre-existing conditions. If you're a cancer patient, if you have diabetes, if you are a pregnant woman in the state of Florida, that is a pre-existing condition. It's disqualifying.
Congressman DeSantis, you voted for the Republican health care plan in the House, which would have stripped Obamacare's protections for people with pre-existing conditions. Do you believe insurance companies should be allowed to charge more to people who have pre-existing conditions?
Pre-existing conditions should be covered in that bill. They were required to be covered. It just gave states the ability to be able to do that in a way that would lower premiums for other people. Here's what I would say as governor. If somebody somehow falls through the crack, if there's a change in law federally or court decision, I will sign a bill to take care of people with pre-existing conditions. We need to take care of those folks. But you know what? I know people in the military, families with people with pre-existing conditions who are on TRICARE. TRICARE. Andrew's running away from Medicare for All, but he ran commercials in the primary saying how he was for it. Medicare for All takes away TRICARE. It forces military families onto a single-payer government plan. So here's the thing. I want protections. I want to have a lot of things for plans, but you actually have to have access to a physician. You can't get stuck on a waiting list. Under a single-payer plan, man, that'll make the VA waiting list look like the Fast Pass at Disney World.
Mayor Gillum?
Listen, Mr. DeSantis wants to correct his record now, but for 6 years while in Congress, he voted over a dozen times to repeal the ACA. He voted to allow insurance companies to discriminate against people based off of pre-existing conditions. For those folks who are at home, if you're sitting on the couch with one other person, between the two of you, probably one of you has a pre-existing condition. And this congressman would have allowed for insurance companies to discriminate against you based off of that pre-existing condition. He told a cancer patient who wanted to know, without insurance coverage, how would they get access to health care? He said you could always go to the emergency room. Now, we disagree on a lot, but on that statement alone, Congressman DeSantis is disqualified for the office of governor.
The point was, when you talk about this coverage, what does that coverage get you? The fact is, with Medicaid expansion, people didn't have access to doctors. Most physicians do not accept new Medicaid patients. So the reality is, you have people with that card, but they are going to the hospital for primary care. I don't think that's a good thing, but that, in fact, is the reality.
Health care is the major issue on Floridians' minds. Everyday Floridians are concerned about getting sick, because if they get sick in this state, they can't go to work. If they can't go to work, they can't earn a wage. If they can't earn a wage, they can't pay their bills. And when they don't pay their bills, something gets cut off.
Thank you.
This is not, this issue is deserving of our time, because this is not something we can just walk past. This is the issue that is at the top of mind for everyday Floridians, and we deserve to hear from the congressman exactly what his health care proposal is. He's been promising one for months. Nothing has come from his office.
On this.
Well, look, Andrew wants to take away employer-provided coverage. He thinks it should be illegal. You support Medicare for all. Read the bill. That's what it does.
Medicare for all.
You ran commercials saying you supported single payer. You said you would do a single payer confederacy with New York and California. Man, our taxes will go up and then we'll send all the money to California. That's not a good health care plan for Floridians. So I want to protect people's current arrangements. Government should not force you off your plans.
And neither would I. The congressman, again, his votes have deluded him into his own definition of what health care is.
So you don't support Bernie Sanders' Medicare for all?
What I support is expanding Medicaid for over 800,000 Floridians who deserve to have access to their own doctor.
If a single payer came to your desk as governor, would you sign it or veto it?
What I would do is expand Medicaid for over 800,000
Would you sign the bill for single payer health care?
Medically needy people.
You wouldn't sign it?
I should also say this, because this is clearly fun and games for the congressman, but for me, I grew up having to wait for the free dental clinic to come through my neighborhood in order for us to get our teeth cleaned. As a child, I was accustomed to going into the emergency rooms because I thought that was the regular thing. I didn't realize you were supposed to have a doctor and have a regular relationship.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
This is not politics. This is real.
So you get the hang of it, folks. Andrew Gillum, there's no other way to say it. He ran as a progressive. He had a huge upset in the primary as a progressive. And then he surrounded himself with Democratic Party insiders, consultants, Hillary Clinton, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Michael Bloomberg. He might end up winning if the recount goes his way, but honestly, I would by these numbers, I mean, look at this. Look at this. He was up by 12 points before that debate. He was up by 12 points before that debate. After that debate, all of a sudden, the numbers start shrinking. Down to 6, down to 7, 4. DeSantis up in one poll. Gillum up 1, 5, 6, 1. Now, you're not up by 12 points before a nationally televised debate, which I assume most Floridians tuned into. Frankly, most people want to feel that their candidate is authentic and standing by their principles, even if you don't necessarily believe in those principles. That's why Bernie does so well among independents and, frankly, a lot of Republicans, because they might not agree with him on everything, but they know he's authentic and he's consistent. And I would argue you're not falling 12 points up in a poll. This is 3 weeks before the election, up 12 points, down to basically a tie right now. If you didn't run away from unabashed, wear it on your sleeve progressivism. And straight up, I mean, look at these numbers. There's been folks online. I know Benjamin Dixon, who is a progressive media host. I've only met him once. I like him, so it's nothing personal. But he has kind of gone after, I guess, progressive commentators, saying that the reason Gillum lost all this ground was because he ran away from Medicare for all. He said, that I don't know if he definitively said this, so I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he basically said, like, that's us white people saying it, and it's really racism is at hand here. And I don't want to minimize that. I mean, I went to school in Florida. Florida, in South Florida is a lot different than Northern Florida. Northern Florida definitely has tinges of Georgia and that Southern racism. But I have a hard time believing that Andrew Gillum lost 12 points in a span of 3 weeks exclusively because of racism. I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense. Especially in a state that literally just voted to restore the voting rights for 1.4 million former felons, predominantly black. So I don't know how those two things go hand in hand. I really don't. This is a state that voted for Andrew Gillum to be the nominee in the Democratic primary. So I'm not saying racism doesn't play a part at all. And I am white, so I understand that carries a certain amount of privilege, and I don't completely understand. I always say this to Ty when we travel, like, I don't pretend to understand everything. But the numbers are the numbers. 12 points. 12 points, he's up. Right before that CNN debate, he moonwalks as fast as humanly possible away from his progressive policies. And I'm not saying him pushing for a Medicaid expansion is a bad thing. It's a good thing. But if you're running on Medicare for all, and that's why you won the primary, why would you go and do the same exact thing every single Democrat who has lost does? Surround yourself with establishment consultants who want your money, not for you to win. And they tell you got to move to the center. If you're this progressive, if you're pushing Medicare for all, you'll lose here. You'll lose this part of the state. You'll lose this. Be authentic. Run on what you believe and let the cards fall where they fall, because I got news for you. Look at the exit polls. Look at the exit polls. These are the midterm exit polls. The top issue was health care. The top issue in America was not the economy. It was health care by a lot. 41%. 41% said in the exit polls health care was their issue. Well, gee. If a charismatic candidate like Andrew Gillum is saying we're going to push, if I'm governor, we're putting in a single-payer healthcare system that covers all Floridians, and my main issue is healthcare, that kind of sounds good, doesn't it? I mean, again, he might end up winning. He might end up winning. The results are super close, and he is now within range for a recount. No, he's not in range for a recount. The numbers as it stands, unless something has changed while I'm live, he has reached the threshold. He's down by 0.4%. 0.5% triggers a recount. So if those numbers hold, there's going to be a recount. But sorry to tell you, if he would have stuck with his progressive bona fides, you don't lose 12 points for no reason. I don't think if we look through the numbers when they're out, it wouldn't surprise me if he lost quite a few, quite a large margin of people who voted for him in the primary because they saw him doing fundraisers with Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Hillary Clinton and Michael Bloomberg. And I don't want to hear, because I have heard it from some people around him, Florida, it's complicated. He had to. Every state's politics is complicated. I've been to 35 states in the last 3 years. Every state political system is a sewer. Every state is complex. But you know what's not complex? And I think Bernie showed this, and even though he was faking it, Trump showed this to a lesser extent. When you're authentic, when you actually put out what you believe and screw the polls and screw the consultants, you got a much better shot of winning.